afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Jacksonville Tourism Development Authority to order. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance. Thank you for being here and those joining us on G10. The first item of business today is an adoption of our agenda. We've had time to look at that, I hope, and entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Secondly, we need to approval of our minutes of our regular meeting of September 30th, 2021.
I'll make a motion.
Motion and a second, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, great. Okay, the first actual item of business today is our presentation of our fiscal year 2021 audit. It's going to be presented by April Adams, a CPA from our audit firm, Cherry Becker LLP. We appreciate you joining us virtually. Enjoyed seeing you the other night in person, and thank you for what you do, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to apologize in advance for those that are having to listen to my presentation for the second time this week. But today's topic is going to be on the Tourism Development Authority rather than the city. So a lot of the language is the same, but the topic is a little different. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, the agenda here. What I would like to cover with you this afternoon is the role of the external auditor. Then I'll talk a little bit about what we do when it comes to internal controls, identify the significant audit areas. I got the results of the audit itself. I have a couple of very high-level financial results from the financial statements themselves, and then I'll do a quick summary of what you should take away from the presentation, and then I'll be glad to take any questions or comments. Okay, so the role of the external auditor. We perform your audit in accordance with the generally accepted auditing standards of the United States. Those standards require us to plan and perform your audit to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. And basically what all that means is that we perform a risk-based audit. So we focus in our procedures on where we think that your financial statements are most likely to have those misstatements, which also means that we don't test every single transaction that happens throughout the audit. Once we have performed all of those procedures, we are required to express an opinion on the financial statements. And so I'll give you the results of that in a couple of slides. And then the last thing on this slide was to the audit standards require us to communicate certain things to you, such as independence or changes that were identified as a result of the audit. And so we do that through this presentation this afternoon, as well as a letter that accompanies your financial statements. All right, let's go to the next slide. So internal controls, we don't opine on internal controls as a part of our audit, but we are required to do quite a bit of work for internal controls. And then we are required to report if we have any, identify any findings or issues related to that work. So what we do is we identify the significant transaction cycles. So if you think of things like how is cash dispersed, how is cash received, how is payroll performed, and how does the financial statements come to be from the financial system itself. We test these controls in conjunction with the city audit as the control environment is the same. And so what we do is we get all the processes and policies and procedures, and we walk through that information and do a test of one of a transaction from its initiation all the way through how it gets recorded in the financial system and then ultimately reported in the financial statements. We do a test of effectiveness and rely upon that as a part of our audit of the cash disbursements. And so that helps us get some assurance on a lot of the expenses that show up in the financial statements. The audit standards also require us to do certain things for journal entries. So we get a data dump of all journal entries that happen throughout the year. And then we mine that looking for unusual transactions. We pull a sample of journal entries, look at all the supporting documentation, look at the business purpose of the journal entry, make sure all that makes sense. Also, as well, having the proper approvals. And then lastly, we look at the IT environment and look at all the controls around the computer system itself, the financial system itself, and is there physical access? Are there passwords? Is it secure when it comes to, are there training around cybersecurity and those types of things? All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So significant audit areas, this points back to the fact that we do that risk-based audit. So these are the areas that we deem to be significant audit areas. As you can imagine, they're the larger balances that show up on your financial statement. And what we're doing is we're testing these substantively, which means that we're confirming them. We are testing the analytically the relationships of the numbers. And then if we have to, we'll do a test of details, pulling actual transactions and looking at all the supporting documentation. Let's go to the next slide. So these are the audit results. As far as opinion, we only issued one opinion. That is all that we issued, an unmodified opinion. That is also known as a clean opinion. That is the highest level of assurance we can give you as a firm that your financial statements are free from material misstatements. So that's the opinion you want. As far as internal controls, as I mentioned, we don't opine on them, but we do that review and a lot of work with that. And so I'm happy to report that we don't have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to bring to your attention. And then the required communications, there were no significant changes in accounting policies throughout the year. There are some estimates listed in that letter that accompanies your financial statement. Primarily just your allowance for doubtful accounts and maybe some depreciable lives on the capital assets. And then lastly, there were no journal entries identified as a result of our procedures, which means that your policies and procedures are properly capturing all the financial activity of the TDA. All right, so now let's go into some financial results. This is just looking at the general fund of the TDA and looking at how did the TDA perform against the budget that you as the board set forth for them to operate against. And so revenues came in $84,000 higher than what you had budgeted. And then your expenditures were about $600,000 less than what was budgeted. A lot of that is just with the uncertainty in the market due to COVID that just different things weren't carried out in the current year, different events weren't had, et cetera. And then I got a little note here at the bottom that when you planned your the budget for the year, you did plan to use some of your fund balance. About $150,000 was appropriated, but because those expenses came in and your revenues came over what you'd budgeted, you actually were able to add back $555,000 to the fund balance itself. All right, let's go to the next slide. So this slide is just giving you a snapshot of all the different changes in the various balances in your financial statements. Obviously, as I just mentioned, that your net income basically was $555,000 for the year. That's what got added to the fund balance. That also is going straight to your cash. So you'll see that your cash went up $550,000. Your AR, accounts receivable, was up just a little bit, $50,000. Same with AP, which is on the liability side, $41,000. And then your revenues, they're up about $100,000, and the expenses went down $10,000 from 2020. All right. So in summary, clean opinion, no journal entries identified during the audit. There are good internal controls in place capturing all the activity. No deficiencies noted in that internal control review. And again, full cooperation from management. We ask for this information at the same time as the city audit, so it just adds to the load of those folks. And we just appreciate everything that they do to get everything to us that we ask for, because it is a lot. And now I'll be glad to take any questions.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that, April. That's a great report. We always like hearing what a good job our finance department does for us all the time. Any questions anybody has about the report?
Yes, April, on page 6 where the financial highlights are, it has an item on note number 2. It says includes $143,000 for stabilization by state statute. Could you explain that, please?
So there's a state statute that is a calculation, basically, that I'm trying to think of how to say this. It's just wants you to not overspend your fund balance. So it's saying you've got cash and you've got fund balance, and then you've got these receivables out there that it's just reserving the fund balance where you're not going to go and appropriate it in the next year.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've never heard that.
Untouchable reserve.
Could I direct your attention to page 9? April, if you look at page 9. if you notice the current and other assets, the next line, other liabilities, and then the net position, the restricted and the unrestricted. This is really one of the most important parts of your audit relative to the two ad hoc committees. The restricted portion is what your promotions ad hoc committee works with as far as what we would call a fund balance. Your unrestricted is what your tourism-related ad hoc committee works with as far as what we refer to as a fund balance. Look at the note. As noted earlier, net position may serve over time as one useful indicator of a government's financial condition. The assets of the authority exceeded liabilities by 3.7 and other money at June 30th, 2021, and by 3.2 at June 30th, 2020. Here's the important part. The net position of the authority is restricted by the enabling legislation as to the purpose of which funds can be spent, and then continues. Due to a change in this legislation with Session Law SL 2017-202, effective July 1, 2017, 1/3 of the net collections are restricted for tourism promotions, and the remaining 2/3 shall be spent on any other tourism-related expenses. So as you work through your budget this past year, you looked at the revenues that were going to come in, and you'll recall that you wanted to, that some of your requests for expenditures exceeded the projected revenues. As you look at your budget for next year, these are the numbers that become very important as to how much of your fund balance each of the ad hoc committees can recommend to the full committee. Now, April, I'm not the auditor, nor am I an accountant, but did I express that correctly?
Yeah, so what you're looking at here is the net position, which means it's accounting for and including on the full accrual. And so this restriction is referring to this state law, and then the state law that the restricted for state statute that you just asked me about doesn't account for this.
Okay. But again, the real point I'm trying to make is that when they look on page 9, the restricted for 2021, which is $1,116,643, those are restricted because they can only be spent on promotions.
It's a combination. If you flip over to page 13, it breaks that number down into what is the stabilization by statute and what is the tourism promotion amount. So the tourism promotion amount is really $973,310.
Okay. And then using page 13 for better, more accurate information, the ad hoc committee that works with tourism related, they look at the unrestricted line item there, which is 2.6 million, and the ad hoc committee on promotions then looks at the tourism promotion of 973,000.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I hope that helps.
Okay. But isn't this the 1/3, 2/3? I think earlier in the year, I think we touched on it at some point that we should absolutely look at these numbers in this way when it comes to budgeting and planning. But in the event that circumstances present that there may need to be a shift, it's not an absolute, correct? If this body were to determine that X amount of money in this circumstance needed to go here, it could be done. It's not absolute.
Let me respond to that. It isn't absolute that 1/3 has to be spent on promotions. The 2/3, you could take all of that instead of tourism related, you could
Right.
pull it over and do it on promotions. But you could not take the 1/3 on promotions and move it over to tourism related. Does that make sense?
It does, because when I think about such a scenario, that's the way I would see it going.
Okay.
Like if I envision a circumstance, I can't come up with one right away to where it would go the other way, but
Well, one of the key things, if you needed more money for promotions, you clearly could reach into that tourism related and bring it over and spend it. No one could ever question it. But if you said, well, we need another $100,000 to do what we want as far as a capital project, tourism related, you cannot reach into that 1/3 for tourism.
Which brings up a point that I want to clarify, and I hope I understand it, but I'd like for everybody else to hear it. We have no time limit on when to spend this money, is that correct? In other words, 5 years from now, if one of these funds is $7 million, nobody's going to come to us and say, you need to start spending this money.
I will defer to April on this one. I think this is a good question. I know of no time limit, but again, I think from a responsible position as the board, you can't just say, we're doing nothing year after year.
I understand that
And keep
part.
building it up. There's got to be some responsible action, or else your public, your hoteliers, others would step in and so forth. April, thoughts?
I would agree with what you're saying. I mean, you want to toss it to me, but I want to toss it to you as more of a legal question. I mean, once it's restricted until it's used, in my opinion.
Well, my point is, nobody from the state is going to come to us and say, you're not spending your money, you need to spend it. That's my point.
We know of no specific time limits that have been set by statute or otherwise to spend either fund.
And I
But-
agree. Prudence says, don't let it sit there and pile up.
Yes, sir, that's all I would say.
Okay.
But should the strategy be executed so well that it starts to accumulate larger balance?
That's not terrible. But anyway, so it says we accept the audit. Do we need a motion to do that?
Yes, sir, please, as you did at the council meeting.
Okay, so,
I move we accept the audit as presented.
okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
For the
opposed?
record, I would like to ask April one question, the same question we always ask in front of the city council. April, in preparing this audit, you understood that you are hired by the TDA authority and not by the staff. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
And is it, at any time during your preparation of your audit, did any member of the finance department or management team or any other city employee try to in any way influence any of the documents or any of the positions that you were taking relative to this audit?
They did not.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again, April. We always appreciate your work.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, everyone, I'm going to go to our second item on the agenda today is our ad hoc committee report from the tourism-related ad hoc committee. And Ken, I guess Ken's going to have a presentation, probably aided by some of our staff.
I probably should have had you just stay down there so we don't get screwed up. Thank you. We met on November the 5th and reviewed current items that needed to be reviewed. Am I going backwards? I'm going backwards. Okay. All right, these, to recap, these are the financial figures, pretty much what you actually just heard. And these are some of the items that we are wrestling with as to the timing of the projects and the funding of the projects. You've got the Lejeune Memorial Gardens, the Beirut Memorial Grove, the Welcome Center, and the sports-orientated investment. Deanna sent out a text about going by and taking a look at what they had put up. I hope everybody had a chance to do that. I went, slipped by there. Again, it's an improvement over what we were looking at before. Actually, I think it's a tremendous improvement. And I'm pleased with it, but we'd like to get some reaction from other members who have had a chance to look at it. Do we have a slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, more budgets. I think we all know about that. Well, let's back up. Here's your wayfaring signs. This is what they're going to look like. I think we've reviewed that before. And here are the locations. I think there's been some slight modification to some of the locations, but nothing major and nothing that should cause any concern. You have in front of you the numbers that correlate with the particular sign that will be put on the streets. As I go through this, if there's any questions or comments, please feel free. The next steps are to submit to the Department of Transportation the encroachment agreement, solicit quotes for the fabrication, final approval, and installation by city staff. We're at that point now, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Staff plans on submitting the NCDOT encroachment agreement first part of December. In the meantime, while they're reviewing that, we'll work on the solicitation documents to get quotes for the actual material. So once we have all that in hand, the hope is that we'll present it right back to the TDA for final approval before we authorize the contractor to fabricate the signs, and then city can start installing the signs.
This is the, well, I guess I got ahead of myself, didn't I? This is the Memorial Garden sign. And again, the new sign is up, not the sign, but
Walk-up.
yeah, the new markup, thank you. The new markup is up. I hope some of you have had a chance to go by. Everybody needs to remember that there are restrictions as to what we can do, and we had to stay within, or the staff had to stay within those restrictions, and we didn't have a lot of wiggle room. And I think some of the staff came up with some ideas of putting, caps on the end of it, caps on the top, which makes it larger, but you still had to stay within the parameters that the state has and also the federal government has. So we didn't have a lot of wiggle room, but they did expand it as much as possible. And I think when the final product is finally on the ground, it's going to look great. This is the old sign that we reviewed, and this is what the new one will look like. And as you can see, going back, this one was kind of, plain vanilla. Didn't have a whole lot of zing to it. This one has a little more zing simply because you've got the columns on the sides, and daggone it, it just looks better. Now here's what's up today for you to look at, and it really doesn't have a whole lot of comment about it other than the staff has put it up and we appreciate that. Again, it just looks better than the original sign. The original sign was just very plain. This has a little pizzazz to it, in my opinion, anyway. Any comments? Again, we want to thank the staff. They've done a tremendous job of following up on this and coming up with some good ideas, and we appreciate that. So the next steps are to get feedback from us, the full TDA board, execute a contract to construct the sign, and to begin design for landscaping. So we're at that stage right now. Let's go back just a second. So the feedback from the full board is what?
Positive. Everybody's good.
Full steam ahead? Okay. So,
Do you need a vote, or do you just need a consensus? You need a
I
vote?
was thinking a motion would be in order to approve option 2, which is the new option as Mr. Hagan has described, and to authorize, do you want the contract to come back to you, or to go ahead, if it's within the budget, for the TDA to go ahead and authorize the contract and begin design? A motion of that sort.
I think for expediency, that we could allow the staff to execute the contract.
Then a motion to approve option 2 with the staff manager authorized to execute the contract and move forward with this construction.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
John.
Mr. Hagan. I appreciate that. I'm not in a position to do it.
I know Carmen's over there getting it word for word, so we're in good shape.
All right, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to thank the staff for the work that they've done getting us to this point. Okay, that brings us to the Beirut Memorial Grove sign. We talked about it very briefly and determined that at this point, we're not going to do a whole lot about it. It's still there. We're not abandoning it. We just have other things to do, and we've got some more information to get before we can move on to the next stage. Any questions about this item? Okay. The visitor center, we talked about that. We had a lot of discussion, who would be in the building, a lot of preliminary discussion, really. And the staff told us at the time, let me back up just a second, please, that because the question was asked, well, when's the building coming down? Well, guess what? The building's gone. And the debris is gone. So now we have a nice flat area. And again, we want to appreciate the city staff taking care of that. I think that was a big savings for everybody concerned, and it gets rid of, a building that was just sitting there. So that has been taken care of again by the staff, and we do appreciate that. There are lots of options when it comes to the visitor center, and they want to proceed with a grant application that would help fund the construction of it. They have some work to do. What was it? The deadline is January, so you have to have the grant application prepared by January?
Yes, so this grant was unique, that actually the grant itself, the deadline was January 2022. However, it's on a first-come, first-served basis. So staff was expeditiously submitting the application for the hope to fund the Welcome Center.
And it has been submitted?
Yes, it was submitted last Friday.
Okay. So we can look, as they pointed out, I think this is a unique grant because most grants that I'm familiar with, there's a deadline, everybody submits their applications, there's a review committee that goes through the process, and then you receive word back that you are either, in or out. In this particular case, it's not first come, first served, but the first one at the trough is the one that's going to be reviewed, and so I think the staff did a great job of jumping on top of this, getting it in a very quick time for us to be hopefully at the front of the line or close to the front of the line. And if that's the way that the grant's going to be, given out, then that's great. Again, thank you to the staff. You stayed in front of it, and let's wait and see. When do you expect to hear back from them of any sort? Do you know what the timeline was?
Sir, it's unclear at this time when we're going to hear back. We know that they are eager to distribute the funds based upon the way that the program is set up, kind of a first come, first serve. I would hope sometime shortly after the beginning of the year, we would have some information back from them. And just to clarify, the grant was for $750,000 for construction. So, it's not a token amount. This is something that could really get the project off the ground.
Okay. Folks watching may be curious on what type of federal funding this is. Is this part of the COVID package?
It is.
Okay.
It is. It's ARP funding that is coming through the economic development part, economic development.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, again, kudos to the staff for jumping on this, and let's see what the end result is. $750,000 will do a lot to get us moving and, figuring out what it is that we want to do. This is one of the floor plans. I think you've seen this before, of what it could look like. Again, I think we need to stress that nothing is in stone. Nothing has been decided. These are merely concepts of what could happen with the layout that we had before. Well, guess what? The layout we had before is gone. So we're basically starting from scratch with a new structure, and it's to be determined on what that will look like, and also who's going to be in it. And that's a discussion for another day. But this is just one idea that we reviewed. We made no decisions, obviously. Restrooms, the restrooms would be available for in and out. In other words, the restrooms would be available for people that were visiting the site, or maybe even at night, there would be an outdoor function of the restrooms. That's one concept. So that's a unique item for this particular building. There's the assemble area that would be, you know, used for meetings or, you know, just a common area, I guess is the best way to describe it. Staff, please stop me if I'm not saying things correctly. Here's your open space area, which would be utilized, I'm sure, by visitors that came in. Again, it's an open space. Obviously, you can do lots of things with open spaces, and how you utilize it would be up to the people that were actually working inside the building. Would have a kitchenette and a reception area, you know, pretty standard stuff for these types of buildings. And would have office space, again, to be determined as to how many and who would use it and that sort of thing. Some of the outdoor amenities would be, these are all possibilities, a gazebo, an outdoor event space, if the land would handle that, public parking, and a gateway sign. Now, that brings us to the gateway signs, and we had a discussion about the location for some of these. And as you know, we have a gateway sign now at that particular site. And one of the reasons that we're changing the gateway sign at other locations is because of the expense of having to constantly keep the present signs in a good condition, because they're made out of basically wood, and, you know, the elements work on it and that sort of thing. My understanding is, and I haven't seen either one of them, that's my fault, but we already have 2 under construction, or has one of them been finalized? 2 under construction.
There's 2 under construction, and in a few slides, we have some current pictures for everyone
Okay,
to look at.
Good. I'll just keep going then. Here we go. This is what the new signs will look like. I mean, gosh, that is a tremendous improvement. Not that the other, actually, I found the other signs to be very attractive, but this is what we want Jacksonville to be. You know, the city has spent enormous time, energy, and funds to make Jacksonville look better. Those of us that have lived here as long as we have can remember the days when we had buildings falling down and people screaming at us for cleaning up the city. Well, the city has done that in the past 20 years. And now we can have signs that will really, I think, enhance the beauty of the city. So this is one of them. What is the timeline for the first one to be completed? And where's the location, please?
So we have 2 signs. This one is at Empire Boulevard and 17, and the other one is at Piney Green and Country Club. Both signs are supposed to be complete by next Friday.
Oh, tremendous. Any comments?
Looks great.
Very nice.
Yeah. Okay, this is the Piney Green sign. Now, I'm assuming that there'll be shrubs, flowers, beautification, I guess is the word, around all the signs, these signs, okay. There's the location again. We did have a discussion about, let me see what the next slide looks like, okay. We did have a discussion about the location that we just saw for the visitor center, and as we said, there's a sign there. Discussions just centered around, do we want to, you know, put a big sign there? We didn't come to a consensus, but obviously that's not the entrance to the city anymore. At one time it was, so it was appropriate to have a sign there. But now the city limits are way down Highway 17. And so we had a discussion on, you know, relocating that sign. And obviously, if you put a visitor center on that site, you would have signage that spoke to the visitor center as opposed to, you know, having an entrance sign for the city. So I think that's going to be an ongoing discussion to go on. Any members have any thoughts along those lines?
Not right now.
Okay.
Mr. Hagan, before
Yes,
we
sir.
move on, if I could point out, the 2 signs with the green checks there, funding for those signs came from the Department of Transportation. That was funding left over from the Piney Green construction project. So anything that we move forward on is something that would need to be considered by the TDA.
Thank you.
What was that amount?
Approximately 750,000.
For the two signs?
Oh, no, that's the funding that was available.
okay.
My apologies. No, the signs themselves, I think, were just under 400,000 between the signs and the landscaping and the dirt, et cetera.
You started to sweat when you heard that figure, didn't you?
We might not get those other two if that was.
Well, let me ask this question. Who initiated this, the state paying for this? The staff?
That was always part, I thought.
So
Again.
the way that DOT projects like Piney Green used to work doesn't work like this anymore. There's a specific amount of money set aside for enhancements to the project after it was complete. Enhancements being landscaping or public art, you know, a number of different things. And so we became aware of those funds and applied for them, were granted them, and initially we were going to do landscaping along the length of Piney Green, but the challenge is only small sections are within the city limits. So there wasn't going to be a whole lot of landscaping out there. This was a great opportunity to go forward with an initiative that actually started here, initially to redo the gateway signs and to carry it forward using somebody else's money.
Well, you know, we may get tired of us throwing kudos at you guys, but again, thank you for that. Because obviously you just saved the TDA, if nobody else, $400,000+ that we can apply somewhere else. So staying on top of stuff like that, I appreciate it, and I know the rest of the board does as well.
One other thing to point out about the $400,000, if we could go back a couple, actually I've got to, if you don't mind, sir. This sign right here is at the intersection of Piney Green and Country Club. One of the reasons that these two signs were so expensive, we ended up getting this corner free from the DOT. Remember, there used to be an old gas station there, right?
Right.
That gas station was kind of down in a hole, if you recall.
I do.
One of the reasons why this was so expensive is because we had to fill and get this sign up to grade for people to be able to see it. That's not a reoccurring issue that we expect into the future. And the other good thing about these signs too is that they're scalable. The way we design them, you can make them larger or smaller depending on the context. So even though it looks exactly the same, the one at Empire is actually just a little bit smaller and more cost effective.
Thank you for that. And I think that completes my presentation. Any comments from the full board?
Just have one question. We actually put out to bid a visitor center. I remember years ago, and it came in unacceptable. Was that what we looked at today? Was that the?
Yes, and actually, we took the initial floor plan and we modified it by adding additional one office space in that open assembly area. So we elongated it, but we haven't finalized the specifics for the layout for specifically the new parcel that we're looking at. But the concept is what we've shown.
So, okay.
And sir, of course, that's one of the reasons why we went after the 750,000, because the plan that we put out to bid last time, it came in over budget at
490.
447. So we knew that we were going to have a larger budget for the project, and 750 worked. The 750 was also allowable because we had already purchased the land. So just like Jacksonville Station and other things that we've done with federal money in the past, we used the value of the land as in-kind to leverage that federal funds for the construction.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, then we're going to move on to our item number 3, which is our marketing report. And I see Susan on the screen, so I guess you're going to take the bulk of this for us today. Is that correct? Okay, now we want to hear you as well, so maybe the guys in the back can.
There we go. There we go.
All right, welcome.
Thanks, you guys. Teresa, you know, she does not miss a TDA meeting. Teresa Beecham, the Biomark, and she's not here this afternoon because she is really sick. So she sends you her regards, and we usually put our presentations together. And so I'm going to pitch in and try and be Teresa. If there's any questions that you all have as we go through or things that I can't answer, she will certainly be better, I think, in a few days. So it's not COVID, but she's been around her, so don't worry about that. But anyway, so what we wanted to talk about, and this is Teresa's part of the report, is that we have updates on some really cool events that we funded and that we marketed for, and what had happened. The Onslow Veterans Powwow, this was the first time we had this event, and it exceeded their expectations, it exceeded our expectations. I don't know if any of you were able to actually attend. More than 2,000 people on Saturday and just over 1,100 on Sunday. We know for sure that we booked 63 room nights. We are positive that there are more that we did not capture, and she has some recommendations for us on how to proceed and capture more of those rooms in the future. Like we said, this was our first event. People came in, tribes from Minnesota, from different states. Our digital marketing for this was also very successful and very well received. So anyway, this is something we're very excited about and we'll be talking to you more about next year. If we look to Ftm Fashion Week, this event kind of got clobbered by COVID. It turned into a virtual event rather than the in-person, everybody watching the models go down the runway and that kind of a thing that continued over multiple days. What was good is they still had the runway part of the event and then sold virtual tickets for that. The room nights were down to 43 from previous years because we didn't have all the people who came into town to see it. They were sitting at their computers and watching. And but that they had 43 room nights, even in that scenario, is pretty impressive to me. We do, feel like when COVID is over and people are vaccinated, that this will not be an issue for us in the coming year. Moving on to Veterans Tribute Weekend. I think we're all going to be glad one day, maybe, when we can say that planning was not affected by COVID, but we still had a scaled down version this year, more than last year, certainly. If you'll recall, year before last was our very first year with this event. Then we didn't have very much except the Walk of Honor last year, and then we rolled out with the family event and some things like that this year. What happened to us was that the weather came in with a terrible storm, and so we canceled portions of the event. What I want to say, though, is that we saw incredible results from what we did and what Teresa did. And so here, let's look at that. We had great traction and awareness. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our just paid social traction and how great it was. The garden tours, right before we started making adjustments with the storm, were close to full. We had 30 reservations. Several of these were people from out of town. I want to just briefly tell you a story about some people from Murals Inlet, South Carolina, that had a veteran brother who was no longer with them. She nominated him for the Walk of Honor. And then even after that bad weather, because the Walk of Honor signs were up, they've just come down, I think, but we're up for an extended period of time. They made a special trip from Murals Inlet, South Carolina to Goldsboro to come and see the Walk of Honor. So I think we're finding a way that people are relating to this event, and that's something we'd like to continue looking at. Speckled Trout Series did great. They had good turnout, and even they fished regardless of the weather. We love that. And so that did well. I wanted to talk in the next slide about the social media campaign. You can see the numbers there. I just want to say, for a paid social campaign, Teresa and I both were blown away by the traction that this one had. You can pay and you can reach people, but when people are sharing and commenting and that kind of thing, it even triggers more response. This was the most effective social campaign we run, you guys. And so there's something here that people want. There's something that people respond to. And I just really like for you to, keep that in your head as we go on. People talked about hearing the ads. When they heard it, they remembered it. Those were local and then outside of the market as well. We also purchased through our Visit North Carolina co-op advertising buy a Facebook event. And our Facebook event about Veterans Tribute Weekend was attached to the Visit North Carolina social media Facebook page. There's about 218,000 followers there. Now, not every single one of those people saw it, but that shows you, just what a huge reach that is. So there were very, very cool things that happened with that and with the advertising. In the end, the bad weather caused a few cancellations. We did not have the parade or the family fun event. And we had such cool things planned with our rec department. Our team there is exceptional, and we appreciate them so much. So one day soon, we're going to get to, well, maybe next year, we'll be able to do that. And then, like I said, we did hear from people that they were coming back just to tour the gardens and see the signs, the Walk of Honor signs with their veterans. Now, coming into my part, if there's any question or are any questions that you have about for Teresa or what she did, you're welcome to try me if you got anything about the marketing report.
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Moving right along, we also had some great media placements since our last gathering. WNC TV out of Greenville is working on a veteran special television segment. It will air sometime toward the end of this month. I'm still waiting to hear. We booked Houston Chenal with a Montford Point Marines interview. Takesha wasn't available for the one-time slot that they were on base, but what we were also able to do was to get an additional segment on the Montford Point Marine Museum cutting after we talked to them about that. And Takesha did do that interview. For those of you who may not know, the Montford Point Marine Museum was pretty much just decimated. It had been closed ever since Hurricane Florence. And it is the only museum of its kind that had collected that kind of memorabilia. There were uniforms there, documents, photos, an incredible assortment. And when you think about it, it almost kind of made you upset and cry. But the good thing is that the base and did put forward some energy and some money toward rebuilding that space. It's in the former dining hall for the Montford Point Marines who trained there at Camp Johnson. And it's going to open to the public this spring, and it's going to be even better. The team there is very, very excited, and that's going to just be something very, very special for us as we reach out and tell Jacksonville's story. One of the interesting things, we'll keep going right to the very next thing, is we had a media placement with Black Southern Belle. She's probably one of the most influential Black female lifestyle bloggers, certainly on the Eastern Coast, absolutely in the Carolinas. She has partners and people that she works for, like Walmart, big companies. I mean, she does a lot of work with a lot of different brands. She realized we'd hosted her about 2 years ago, and she realized how her audience responded to information about veterans and military history. And she's helping us try and find those Montford Point Marines. And she did a brand new post and included us in one of her email blasts. Her emails go alone to 26,000 subscribers. And we have already had some people reach out and talk to us, realize that their relative was indeed a Montford Point Marine, and they really want to come to Jacksonville for that ceremony because she goes, that's where it happened. That's where he served. So these are some of the reasons we're doing these things, and it's super exciting when they pay off. Okay, one more media placement, and this one is with a furry influencer. We had invited Reuben the Bulldog. He has an amazing following on YouTube. If you weren't with us last year or the year before last, one person flew in from Boston just to meet Reuben. He is such a celebrity, and he's based in Wilmington. When we canceled the Lejeune Memorial Gardens tours, Reuben's owner, Mike, decided that he still really wanted to do something for our veterans. And if you go to YouTube and Google Reuben the Bulldog Veterans or Jacksonville, you'll find his video. And you know what? I meant to double check the current views on that video. I'm sure they're well over 10,000, if not more right now. But check out that video. It's really, really sweet. Reuben tours the gardens, and then there is the download to the gardens tour that we have on our website is in the content right there with the video, so people can understand a little bit more about what they're seeing. But some great, great, great visibility for us. Okay, I also went to the Visit North Carolina in-state media mission. This is when the state uses its leverage and its contacts to bring together a group of national writers as well as bloggers, and then triangle and statewide media. So Elizabeth Hudson from our state was there, somebody we worked with and know. Some of the people we did know, NC Tripping, some people like that have been really incredible parts of our media coverage were there. But there were also some new writers that I've already been talking with. Some of them work with national outlets. And so we're in the process of pitching and following up now and just learning a whole lot about that. The pitch sheet that we used is in your packet. I invite you to look at that so you can kind of see what we do is we tailor that pitch sheet around some of the themes that we see happening with the lifestyle press, and we're trying to make sure that they understand the unique offerings that we have. So that is in there. Our social media continues to rise. Again, that's in your packet. Between paid and organic means we just post. We don't necessarily put the paid in there. The paid posts were through the events that Teresa did that you just heard about earlier. But with all of that together, we reached about 70,000 people last month, which makes me really happy. That shows, the traction that we're having, the new people we're reaching outside of this market. You got to know about us before you can come here. And so that's awareness is one of our big goals. About 13,000 have engaged with our posts. That means they click on it or comment or something like that. And then we picked up some, that's where we are now. We're at about 4,600 followers on Facebook and Instagram together. Instagram being a little bit younger audience, Facebook being a little bit older audience. We picked up some great new followers on Facebook. For those of you that have businesses on Facebook, if you do a paid ad and people like it, make sure you invite those people who are new that have liked your ad to follow you. And then looking ahead, we are working on dates for a January planning meeting, strategic planning meeting that will look out definitely for the next 6 months and over the next year as well. We'll be looking across all of our marketing platforms, and we'll be looking at events, media, hosting, the whole thing. We'll also be kicking off our planning for Veterans Tribute Weekend of 2022 to make it into the event that we hope it can be once we're actually, free of some of these restrictions. We can't cover the weather, but there's a lot of stuff we can. And so hopefully then, I want to talk to you about an incredible opportunity that Teresa brought to our board. The ad hoc committee has already been briefed on this and have responded favorably. And so I wanted to talk to you a little about it on Teresa's behalf. I can't tell you enough or how important it is for you to understand Teresa's relationships brought this to us at this incredible price that they're asking. It is called Crystal's Ultimate Slumber Party. Crystal is a radio DJ on WRNS. Interesting thing to know about WRNS, they are the largest country music audience in the country. Their footprint expands west almost to Raleigh, up north of New Bern, almost to the Outer Banks, and then south into Wilmington. And these are the people that we've been targeting. They're in that close nearby drive market, get them to pop in, do a few things, think about staying. And what's exciting about this is that we're going to get a chance when we work with this group to talk to them about what's here in Jacksonville and encourage them to come back and bring some more girlfriends, do some more shopping, and do some other things. When they come, it's literally like a big pajama party. They will wear their pajamas. There'll be a concert by a national recording audience, artist. Say that fast 10 times. Dinner, drinks, breakfast, that kind of thing. You can see. I'll let Kim show you a few of the shots that they had from last year. The host hotel that they would stay is the Hilton on Western Boulevard. And what's the great opportunity that we have with this promotion is that we'll also get an opportunity. We would be their premier sponsor, their lead sponsor, the sponsor that gets the most attention. We'll get a chance to do a 2 to 3 minute video presentation about things you can do in Jacksonville. Now remember, these are women, and women tend to be the primary decision makers, not exclusive, but primary decision makers. All of our research, visit and see ours, everybody else's, makes the decision about where they're going to go. And what we'd like to do is give them that opportunity to see why should they come to Jacksonville. We think that if we talk about Mike's Farm, the gardens, some of our great shopping, some other things like that, that they just might spend a little extra cash before they decide to leave our beautiful city, and then they'll decide to come back. Between all of the different ad buys, all of the coverage that we would have as a sponsor of this event, we would be included in the spots when they start advertising the event. It would be the equivalent of $17,500 in value. We would pay $3,000 for the sponsorship. We'd invest about $1,500 in video production and would pay $4,500 total. So that I request to you all here is for $4,500 to move forward with this promotion request.
Clarify. I'm not sure that this came before the promotions committee, ad hoc committee. The reason why it's in front of the full committee is the fact that this came in about the middle of last week, and we had very short turnaround. So I need to clarify for the full committee. Has the promotions ad hoc committee seen this at all?
Just in the agenda packet, but we were, yeah. that
Okay,
was
just
in the
want to
agenda
clarify
packet.
the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we need a motion.
Well, also, Chris, did you want to add anything? I saw your name on this was actually agenda item number 4, I guess. We kind of morphed into that, which is fine. But I'd reviewed it before. It looks fantastic. I think if we could fill a hotel for $4,500, we'd do it for every hotel. I mean, that's pretty, if we could, it's a really unique opportunity. I'm excited about it. And maybe.
Well, I'll make a motion to sponsor this event to the tune of $4,500.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. Well, Teresa, great.
Let me clarify.
Teresa, Susan.
Let me clarify just a moment, if I may. In the promotion portion of your budget, there is $10,000 for unexpected,
Right.
or let's say undesignated. I want to make sure that the motion is clear that you're authorizing $4,500 to come from that promotional $10,000 line item. Was that the motion?
It was.
Yeah.
Richard, can I clarify one place? We looked back at the budget and we had almost $3,000 that we did not spend on the Onslow Powwow promotion. And there was also another line item that we had not totally maxed out. So right now, it would be a very, very small amount that would come out of that 10,000 bucket for great opportunities.
What I would prefer, though, to keep it very clean is instead of looking, in budgeting, when you authorize money to go to an event and they spend most of it, it is the practice that what they didn't spend goes back to your fund balance. For clarity in accounting, I would prefer, unless Gail feels otherwise, that the $4,500 comes specifically from the $10,000. You comfortable with that, Gail?
Sir, whatever y'all want to do, we can make it happen.
No, I agree. We need to make it clean and cut and just move on.
Thank you.
And we'll still have that available, I guess, in the end of the others.
Well, whatever funds come back.
Right, whoever come back, so that's great, okay. All right. Well, Susan, super. Thank you so much for that. Anything else you'd like to add?
Great. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, you too.
All right, so, very good. Okay, well, I think with that, then we have come to the end of our new business for this meeting and come to the point for director's comments.
Oh, I did,
Oh, wait.
I
Okay?
did we to get the hotelier update from Chris.
Oh,
That's what I was supposed to.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
basically the market as a whole. Teresa and I had spoken earlier this week. And obviously it's an interesting time and has been for a couple of years. And to make any kind of real comparison from an occupancy perspective, you almost have to look back to 2018 prior to September 14th when Hurricane Florence made landfall. And then that would be the best point just to analyze that trend over the years at increases or decreases. Corporate business in the market is obviously, it's not rebounded. The industry forecast as a whole kind of for that segment is, it's expected third or fourth quarter next year, possibly early 23 before the corporate segment rebounds to pre-pandemic levels. But the transient, the leisure business has been good. It was good throughout the summer. And I looked at the the Smith Travel Research data up through September. And it's been pretty consistent. August and September were the first months this year with occupancy that were kind of flat compared to 2018. So even with that decrease in that corporate business, the market has maintained very well with, nice ADR increases. And so that occupancy tax has kind of balanced itself out that way and stayed very healthy. Group business has not rebounded to the level, which I don't know that was expected at this point. Seems like there's more of a demand for event space, and group business coming in that way rather than room nights at the moment. And just, I guess overall as an industry, there are three kind of key factors that are really being watched right now. The industry as a whole in the nation kind of feels like could determine how the winter's going to go, and that was, how immunity holds up. Does the virus change, and who can know with that, and then how we behave as a society. Or are we doing what we need to do? Are we suppressing this spread? Which all of that can vary state by state, town to town. And then I think it's 59% of the nation's been fully vaccinated at this point. So, but the market's holding its own, but it's hit that point as of September that it's kind of flat from an occupancy perspective to what it was in September 2018.
Chris, thank you for that. All right, so now we can move to our director's comments, I guess. Anybody,
Well, I'd like to comment on a couple of things. Going back to the Sports Commission's report, which we all have in front of us, I'd like to point out two events that they had in October that did very well for Heads on Beds. They had the cycling event, North Carolina Mountains to the Sea, which ended here in Onslow County, and they had 153 rooms that were booked for that event. And then the Jimmy Anderson Jr. Invitational, this one was the girls' golf tournament. Girls came from all over the state, actually a couple from out of the state, I believe. And again, that was 169 rooms. So I think that's something that we need to, keep an eye on and make sure, not make sure, but monitor that the Sports Commission is doing their job, putting heads on beds. And the other thing I would comment on is on a report from the Sturgeon City. As a board member, just like everybody to know that our director has left us, Paula, and we'll be in the hiring mode. I think, I haven't checked with Dawn in the last couple of days, but I believe we've already started our search for a new director. Paula did a great job, but as all of you, I think, know, that she has a new child, and it's just, she wants to pay more attention to her child, and I certainly commend her for that. So Sturgeon City will be in the market for a new executive director, and they'll start that process. Well, they have started the process, but with the holidays, on us, I'm sure it's going to be flipped into January before there's much movement. And the last thing I'd like to comment on is that on the final page, when we review our funding for the first 3 months of the fiscal year, July, August, and September, we're pretty much 25 to 30% up. So hopefully we can continue that for the rest of the year, and it's a very good sign for the economy, a very good sign for us as the TDA board. That's a pretty healthy jump.
That is nice. It's been very unusual this year. I've talked to many people that even though that's been such a challenging year, a lot of businesses have fared better than they have in normal years. It's hard to explain, but I guess we have to just be thankful for what we got when we got it. With that said, I want to say happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. It's going to be a couple of months before we get together as a group again, so it'll be a while, and we're going to have, I guess, a report from Dr.
One item. For the past 10 months, it's been my pleasure to be with you. As you can appreciate, I have a day job, and I've been reviewing with the staff their abilities and their desires. Starting right now, I'm going to be stepping aside and will be available as needed. Anthony is going to be the primary staff person who will work with you. Deanna will work with the tourism-related ad hoc committee. Kim will work with the promotions ad hoc committee. Carmen will continue to be the person who coordinates all of your agendas and so forth. John will continue to give you excellent legal advice, whether you're interested in it or not. And Gail will continue with your financial. I want to tell each of you how much I have enjoyed getting to know you personally. It has been a tenure where I believe we have set things in motion that are very clear about the following. Number one, this is your committee, not the staff committee. This is your role as TDA. As witnessed today, very little staff conversation. I would encourage you to keep it that way. For the TDA to function, it needs to be the 6 members of the TDA directing, not the staff directing. I will assure you that even though I will not be in many of your meetings, I will make sure that the staff keeps that moving forward. Second thing, I commend you for taking the initiative now to become deeply involved in the application process and really determining whether applications are producing heads on beds. Because as we have said before, that's where the money comes from. That's the purpose of the money, is to produce tourism that actually creates heads on beds. With that, again, I wish each of y'all a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you very much for letting me be part of this organization for the last 10 or so months. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. It's been really enjoy working with you as usual. And I guess we don't have to start the meetings earlier with Anthony or elongate the meetings or anything. Okay, we'll keep you in check.
We'll start at the same time and we'll be done by 5.
Okay, got to keep you in
promise
check.
that.
All right, thank you, sir. With that, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Oh, I didn't know that.